When you're a jet all the way. There we go. Hello out there in YouTube land. Happy Sunday morning to everybody, and a happy Shake-Timber to all those celebrating. Let's get right into it, shall we? For my first choice of this month, I watched the most recent film adaptation of the Shakespeare classic Romeo and Juliet. It's a movie called The West Side Story. Like the movie's a few decades old. It was on Broadway, a big hit. It was actually my first experience with this story. I've never seen it before. I'm familiar with some of the songs and the general concept. But yeah, decided to give it a go. It was the most recent film adaptation brought to us by Steven Spielberg. You know, whoever thought that man can do a musical? The guy does everything. It is worth mentioning, I considered reading the play itself, Romeo and Juliet. I thought, it's like one of those shows that, people are already so familiar with it. You may have read it back in high school English class, or it's been referenced and parodied so much, people are well aware of it. Really have nothing, I don't really think there's much that I can add to it to make it interesting. So, returning to the film adaptations. And I can tell you, I was very pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed this one. The transition from the play to the movie I thought was quite fascinating. There's the classic tale set in Verona, Italy. You have the Montagues and the Capulets, two blood rivals, like these families that always hated each other. And it's like coming from an Italian family, I can easily tell you the validity of this story, because families can hold a grudge, and it extends through the generations. So very believable on Shakespeare's part. So that's the story, and then the modern day film adaptation. It takes place in the 1940s or 50s, definitely post World War II. It takes place in New York City, and rather instead of two rival families, it's we have a little clash between the two groups and ethnicities, groups of people living in New York City. So that was a very interesting transition. So instead of families, now we have the two gangs together, the Jets and the Sharks, they're called. Of course, they're young teenagers. And as they say, the neighborhood was changing, It's New York City was changing, and there's a little clash of cultures, little races, whatnot. So yeah, it was. I thought as far as modern day adaptation goes, I thought it was definitely spot on, definitely very clever. Quick side note too, because this is Sunday, the NFL is on. The football team, the Jets. The New York Jets. Don't quote me on this. I'm pretty sure when the owner of the team named the team the Jets, I'm pretty sure he was kind of inspired by West Side Story. The owner of the team was a showbiz guy. And I think maybe the name the Jets, the idea for the name came from West Side Story. Don't quote me on that. But I think there actually is some truth to that. But like I said, don't quote me on that. Also, I got to reference one of my favorite human beings ever, Little Stevie. Steve Van Zandt plays guitar in Bruce Springsteen's band. He made a little joke in his book that every year, the New York Giants, the other football team around here, they should change their name to the Sharks. That way, every year we can have a matchup between the Jets and the Sharks. Yeah. He's a very quirky fellow, and not gonna lie, I think that actually would be kind of a cool idea. Imagine the touchdown celebrations; they'd be extraordinary. As I said before, I love the transition from Shakespearean times to what was the present day New York City in the story. The famous scene, Romeo, he's calling up to Juliet, and she's in the balcony of her house. Of course, in the movie, they're on the street, Juliet's standing on the fire escape of her apartment building. There's Romeo. Well, actually, I should have said this before. They're not called Romeo and Juliet in the movie. They're called Tony and Maria. So the funny thing occurred to me during that balcony scene, which I'll get to in just a moment. But yeah, I love the transition. You're in New York City, she's on the fire escape of her apartment building, and there's Tony down the street calling to the woman he's fallen madly in love with. So I had to say, watching that movie, the famous balcony scene, one thing jumped in my mind. I think I must be nuts for viewing the movie this way, but there's the famous number in the play. Tony, he meets Maria for the first time, and he has to find her. He's madly in love with her. He's roaming the streets of New York. Maria, Maria, the most beautiful name in the world. And You know what got me? Like, he's roaming the streets and he finds her. You're gonna think I'm nuts for thinking in this way, but this is the thought that popped in my mind watching the scene in the movie. Like New York City. Like, you know how many Catholic, Italian, and Hispanic women there are named Maria in New York City? There's Tony wandering the streets. Maria, like Maria. What were the odds that he found just one? You know. Now, talk about written in the stars. That is a romance that was meant to be. All right. Let's start to wrap it up here, folks. So one other thing that crossed my mind, obviously, maybe I'm not going to spoil it anyway, just in case nobody's ever read Romeo and Juliet. But you think how like that play famously ended, and I think about how this movie ended. Very clever. That was once again a great transition, a little more realistic for the time too. So I'm curious too. Like I've never seen the original West Side Story. Like the original West Side Story ending, was that true to Romeo and Juliet's ending, or was it more in line with the latest movie? Did they end the same way? I'm just curious if any of you guys know the answer to that. I'd love to hear it down in the comments below. So anyway, folks, I will leave it at that. Been off to a great start so far this year for Shake-Tember. Got a couple more plays. And I think the next one I definitely want to tackle is The Tempest. I have the book. I have the printed version, the Folgers collection. And I did find a live performance here on YouTube, which I'll plan to watch probably. I know The Tempest is a little trippy and quite imaginative, so maybe it might help to see a little visual representation on the stage. So anyway, folks, I will leave you all there. Happy Sunday, happy Shake-Tember, and I will see you down the road. Take care, everyone.